We are coming at you live. I am Jay Franze, and I am here with the beautiful Miss Mindy Joe. Miss Mindy, how are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you, Jay.
Nice. We are a couple of brand strategists, leadership development coaches, and if you are new to this show, this is where we use our 5 decades of professional experience to help you stand out from the crowd. Tonight, we will be discussing project management. So, Miss Mindy, are you excited to talk about project management?
I am thrilled. Cannot wait.
There you go. And if you would like to join us tonight in this conversation, please feel free to visit Franze and Friends. You can join us, comment, and fire off any questions that you may have. But before we get started, Miss Mindy Joe, do you have any fun facts for us?
All right, here are fun facts for January 26th. Here we go. So we have Glenn Curtis. He pilots the first successful hydroplane in San Diego. And I know California is somewhere that you are quite familiar with, Jay.
Yes, yes. Let's just leave it at that. Yes.
All right. Then we have in 1954, ground breaks in Disneyland. Again, California. I think I have a trend happening here.
There is a theme.
There is. And then in 1989, AT&T reports their first loss in 103 years.
Everybody has a phone.
Wow, right? Yeah. And going into something else that will connect with you, Wayne Gretzky, he is 61 years old.
You miss
And I know
100% of the shots you never take.
that's right. And I know you love your hockey.
Yes, ma'am.
And, yes. And also something else near and dear to your heart, National Spouses Day.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes. So you and the wife, there you go.
We were off to such a good start.
You didn't realize I made this all about you today. And we have National Peanut Brittle Day.
Nice.
Not
Again.
sure how that applies, but okay. Do you like peanut brittle?
My dad did. We'll go with that.
Ah, cool. Very good. And to wrap it up and tie it in to our very, very special guest tonight that I am so excited to be able to talk to, here we go. So, Ellen DeGeneres, she is 64 years old. Gospel singer Kirk Franklin is 52. Do you know what they have in common with our guest?
I'm hoping you're not going to go with age because that's a really rude way to start the show.
No. Ellen DeGeneres is from Louisiana, very close to this particular place, and gospel singer Kirk Franklin is from Texas. So our very special guest is in the great state of Texas. Take it away, Jay.
And Ellen is also working in California, so I mean, we're tying it all together tonight.
There you go.
All right, folks, we do have a very special guest with us tonight. Tonight we have the founder of the Thurman and Company. Hailing from the great state of Texas, we have Miss Angela Thurman. Miss Angela, how are you?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you so much. So pleasant to be here tonight with you.
It's a blast to have you. Thank you for joining us. I know it is late and it is not easy for people to join us, but we do appreciate it. So tonight we are going to discuss project management and a whole host of other things because you have a background beyond belief.
Thank you.
So before we just jump in, why don't you go ahead and, I know you wanted to tell us a little bit of story about your exit from college. Is that something you could share with us?
Sure. I'm so happy to. So I grew up in Northwest Arkansas. I'm from Benton County, Arkansas, which is the extreme Northwest county in Arkansas and the home of Walmart. You may have heard of Walmart.
It's a small little, neighborhood store, right?
Yeah, neighborhood store. Walmart store number 4 out of the original 26 is in my hometown. So one of my claims to fame. And I went to a very, very small school in my hometown. I graduated with 5 other electrical engineers in my class. I'm the only woman in the graduating class. And I was very, very lucky early in my career to have been taken under the wing of a man who was not only the chairman of the engineering division, but also a deacon in my church. And when I was still in high school, he gave me a subscription to Woman Engineer magazine and helped guide me into an engineering study program. So in my final semester of school, I saw a full-page ad for NASA Lewis Research Center, which is now NASA Glenn in Cleveland, Ohio. And they were looking for engineers, young engineers, to apply for positions specifically for the electrical power systems of the space station program, which was still in development at that time because I'm very old. And so I thought, oh, why not? So I sent an application, and surprisingly, they called me for an interview. I went for this interview shortly before finals week. And so when I was during the graduation ceremony, when I walked across the stage to get my diploma, they're like, they made the announcement that, oh, and on Monday, she leaves for an interview with NASA. And everybody clapped, and it was really exciting. So my first job out of college then was as an electrical engineer doing program management for the power management systems of the space station program.
So you started with a small job out of college.
I set the bar pretty low.
You set it pretty low. I understand that. So you're starting off your career at NASA. I can only imagine what a career like that would be and how that would play out. But can you tell me what the day-to-day life is for somebody who's working at NASA?
It's pretty interesting. There's lots of meetings. That sort of program. I monitored and oversaw the design work for prototype power systems, a particular piece of switching gear called a load converter that would transform DC power to AC power. And so there were competing designs for that work. So I worked with both Westinghouse and TRW and their engineers. And of course, these were always gentlemen who were significantly more experienced than I was. And so I usually would work with, there were a few other younger engineers like myself, most of them 2 or 3 years older than me, who were from some of the very best schools in the United States. Carnegie Mellon, RCI, Case Western Reserve there in Cleveland. And so I really got to work with a lot of very, very bright people. And so I would work with these engineers from Westinghouse and TRW and got to manage the projects. But that put me at a very young age, and as a female, saying to these gentlemen, you're behind schedule, you're over cost. At the rate you're spending money, this should have been done 2 years ago. And it was pretty exciting. I did at different times test the prototype equipment, and I have blown up twice pieces of equipment that cost $250,000, and then told my contractor, well, it wasn't fail safe, now was it? So yeah,
Miss
a lot of fun.
Miss Mindy and I both have a couple daughters. So I just want to know from your point of view, especially at such a high organization as NASA. What's it like being one of the only females involved?
Well, within the first couple of months that I was there, and you have to realize when I started my career with NASA, Ronald Reagan was the president. Um, so um, the first one of the first things my branch chief did was to tell me I needed to take assertiveness training. So because I was a young female from the South, and yeah, it was pretty interesting. Um, at times, I would need to give a presentation. I was the only female in a room full of 58 people. Um, it's significantly different now, but not that much different.
So, is it safe to say you were more of an introvert then?
I am very much an introvert. Very
Still.
much. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So, do you have any advice for anybody who might be in that same predicament?
um, you can. First, I don't apologize for being an introvert. That's who I am. I'm comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable speaking to you today because it's just the two of you. For me, this is just a small group, an intimate setting. I do not like to speak publicly to large groups, and that's okay. I'm comfortable with that.
Nice.
But you know, I'm more of the introverts unite kind of mindset.
Well, I'm curious that assertiveness training. So, I know now like you're into, like project management and contract management, et cetera, et cetera. Do you feel like that assertiveness training helps set you up for your path now as well?
Oh, when I got home for the first time a few months after I started my career, my family were all like, "What happened to you? You honk the horn now. You 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 talk back." They could tell a difference right away.
That's wonderful. So assertiveness is definitely a trait. And let's talk about that project management piece a little.
Sure.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So that's definitely a trait then that would be, what other character traits? Give me a few more. So assertiveness and give me a few more that you feel would be valuable for a project leader to have.
Organization. I feel I was born an organized child. I probably, you know, had a schedule from the embryo stage. I love all types of organization tools, and um, I've been told that if I don't have a calendar or a template or a prototype, then probably nobody does. So I'm a highly organized person. That doesn't mean I'm always neat, but I'm organized, and I usually um, can think about how things um, things will depend on one another. So if this doesn't happen, then that's not going to work, and I can think about the ramifications of the activities or the failure for things to happen. So someone that can evaluate risk is also a good characteristic. Um, so if you are obtuse and not aware of what risks may be involved in either taking on or not taking on a particular project, then maybe project management isn't for you.
Okay.
Mhm.
So when running a project, it's important to have the right subject matter experts involved.
Yes.
So what recommendations do you have in order to get those SMEs involved in the process, especially if you're someone, maybe you're being hired, like maybe it's a contracted position, or perhaps you're new at your job and you're not sure of all the players involved. What are your recommendations?
So if you're new or you're being brought in as a consultant, finding out early on who are the decision makers, who has, maybe if they don't have actual if they're not actually in a position of power, they still have influence. And getting them on your side, helping them to understand what the benefit is to them for getting involved in the project or helping the project succeed.
So, do you have any stories or examples that come to mind where you're like, oh, you know, there was a project that it was so smooth and almost flawless, where all the players aligned and they just got the job done. Does anything come to mind for you?
I do actually. Um, um, in my previous role with a major US aerospace company, I was responsible for all the flight deck printers for many different OEMs and their various derivative not just products, but their airframes, different kinds of airplanes. So I was informed that I would be taking over not just the ones that I had originally had, but a friend of mine and coworker was going to retire. So I would be taking over his products as well. So now I had 7 different printers. And one of those, the supplier had told us that this particular model was going to be sunsetted. It was going to be obsolete. Now, they were really a good supplier. They are a really good supplier. And so they had a replacement product in their product roadmap. It was going to be, a drop-in solution, and everything would be very simple as far as the replacement on the aircraft. However, in aerospace, you just don't replace one product with another, even if it is a drop-in replacement. You have to get the customer's approval to accept the new replacement product, and you have to get that particular product certified for that aircraft. And that usually involves a great deal of testing to prove that it meets all of the requirements of the original product. And, if it's in the US, that involves the FAA, but it could also involve the certification authorities of other countries like Japan and China and Europe and Canada and on and on and on. So, and then you have to consider how you have to calculate exactly when you're going to make this cut in based on current production rates and on and on and on. There's a lot involved. And it took some time. It took a lot of coordination with not only the supplier, but also various different customers. And there was an entire team involved, lots of engineers, different product managers for the various different customers, which were in different countries. And that involved coordinating, because it was the same product on different aircraft. You had to get both sets of customers to agree to everything all at the same time. But overall, I would say that was one of the best projects I ever worked on.
Very
awesome.
nice. It is.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw one more curve at you, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jay here. So, what about an example of a project? Anything that comes to mind where possibly that subject matter expert, that decision maker had to be replaced?
Replaced?
Yeah,
Hmm.
maybe they had to be asked, like, think about from the standpoint of maybe advice we can give, like, when that happens, this is how it should be done diplomatically and effectively.
Mm. What about I've had a situation where a key member passed away. Is would
Oh,
that? I mean,
oh,
would that be the sort of
that's
situation
so
you're thinking of?
sad. Well,
I
my
mean,
goodness, I mean, that even takes it a step further because I'm sure there had been a grieving process and all those
there
still on
was
the project are, oh my
yeah,
goodness.
there was
How do you overcome
no
that?
knowledge transfer. I mean, when
Oh,
someone's going to be leaving the company, usually there's
yes,
at least a period for knowledge transfer. When someone
yes,
dies, there's not. And really, the replacement comes in, and number one, there's the grief. Number
yes,
two, there's a sense of guilt,
right.
and they're trying to um, learn to come up to speed on the project, even if they've been you know, involved a little bit. You know, they're still trying to come up to speed based on whatever evidence is available, which
Yes.
is oftentimes not a lot. So, the great lesson learned that came out of that experience is that the project information needs to be in a shared resource. Um, None of the important project information should be on anybody's desktop or any kind of flash drives that they take home. It needs to be accessible by the team.
Great advice.
No, that's absolutely a great piece of advice. I know a lot of times people think that you're potentially micromanaging them when you're asking them to share their files or keep things online. But the reality is, if you look at it from the company's point of view, you're trying to preserve the project. People come and
Yes.
go all the time, so you really do need to keep an eye out for things like that. But Miss Mindy mentioned the the team and how to assemble a team member and the people you're looking for to bring onto your team. Can you tell us some of the traits you might look for in those people?
A lot of it depends on, what the project is going to be. But I would always look for people to be on my project who are willing to learn. That is a key thing for me. I mean, I as a person, as a project manager, am a, a, a constant learner. I'm always taking courses on LinkedIn. I'm looking for new books to read. Maybe it's not directly related to the job I'm doing today, but somehow it's going to tie in or stretch my brain a little bit. So I would always be interested in having people on my project that even if they don't have the exact skill set today, they're willing to learn. And I think that my assistant Robin is probably the best example of that I've ever had. Um, People who are going to bring to the table some of that subject matter expertise that I don't have. I don't know everything, and I'm going to rely on them for that. Um, People who understand what the end game is. They understand not just, oh, we've got to develop this or we've got to do that or corporate wants us to do this, so here's my job today, but they understand how this project or program is ultimately going to benefit for everyone, not just make money for the company, but benefit them. And I think that, or, humanity as a whole, or, whatever you're doing, I think that kind of attitude is everything.
We talk about that all the time. We're
Yeah.
always saying that you can teach the subject, you can't teach attitude. So if
Mm-hmm.
you come in with a positive attitude and you're willing to put in the effort it takes to succeed, we can teach you the fundamental skills.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, can you kind of talk about any mentors you may have had that have kind of guided you into this direction? Because you
Oh.
don't just wake up and stumble upon working at NASA and then continue on with such a career. So can you
Well,
tell us about some of the mentors you may have had?
my professors at university were all wonderful, all of them, just fabulous, and I think I was truly blessed to have attended the school that I did, and to have been taught by them. Um, I mentioned the fact that the chairman of the division was a deacon in my church. Well, another one of my professors, I had known him since I was in the 6th grade. I actually graduated with one of his sons. And so I can remember when he came to my 6th grade class and, gave a talk about what it was like, like a career day thing of what it was like to be an engineer. And but beyond that, while I was at NASA, I was also trained in project management by Dr. Harold Kersner, who happened who happened to teach at one of the local universities, Baldwin Wallace College. And he's like the godfather of project management theory. And so NASA would bring him in to teach project management to all the young engineers. And I still have the book that I got from that training. So I think that was another one of those serendipitous moments that certainly not everyone gets. And again, I was just so blessed to have that opportunity and that training. And then there were so many mentors throughout my career. Some of the people that I met in my telecommunications experience. One of the men who supervised me very early in my telecom experience. He was my VP for a long time. Encouraged me to go to law school, and yeah, there have just been so many. So yeah, it's been great.
Right. So
Yeah.
I have to know. I mean, you've had these great mentors. You've had the opportunity to leave school and go straight to NASA. You've moved on to work at other companies. You've started your own company, which I want to get to here shortly. But can you tell me what has been your proudest moment so far?
Oh gosh, that's so hard to say. I hmm, my proudest moment. I think this is kind of silly, but I think maybe earlier, just a few weeks ago, when I told my CPA that despite the fact that my company has only been in existence for a few months, that that I ended the year profitably for 2021, because he had said, "Oh, well, if you didn't make any money, don't worry about paying taxes." And I'm like, "But we did make money."
But what if I did make money?
Hey.
Then what do you do?
Exactly. Oh, that's
That was really a proud moment. Yeah,
Until you had to write the check for the taxes, but that.
exactly. Well, we'll see how that goes.
All right. So before we shift gears here, can you give us any advice that you might give to somebody who would like to start in this world of project management or engineering?
um, so for project management, I would say, first of all, join the Project Management Institute, join PMI. That's where you will find a community of like-minded people who can help and support and train you in project management. The PMI website is full of resources. PMI has local chapters where you can attend events. Many of them are currently virtual. It doesn't cost a lot. It's very, very cost effective. And you can earn certification as a project management professional, and they have other certifications in specialties like risk and agile and other expertise. So I would say that is definitely my first recommendation for anyone interested in project management.
Let's
And
talk
then
about that for a second. 'Cause
Sure.
You have your PMP, which is a credential that you get through the Project Management Institute. And I know it's equivalent to basically the MBA in the business world. So can you tell us what that process was like, what kind of studying you had to do, and how hard it was to get that credential?
Okay. So sitting for the PMP requires, first of all, it's dependent on whether or not you have a degree. And if you have a 4-year degree, you don't have to show as many hours of real life project management experience. If you don't have a degree, you have to show a few more hours of real life experience. And then you have a certain number of hours of project management training that you also have to show. And not all of that training has to be through PMI. It could be from LinkedIn or some, a local college course or many other resources. And when I talk about real life project management training, it could be any type of project that you have managed using the project management body of knowledge process. So if you planned out and executed a project, like you built a deck on your house and you followed the PMBOK methodology to build the deck on your house, all the hours that you spent on that project would count towards your application. And there's, it could be lots and lots of stuff. It doesn't have to be work related.
All right. You mentioned a couple of things there that I want to touch on before we get too far along. One of the things is tools. So can you tell us some of the tools that you use?
One of my number one go-tos is Excel. Another number two go-to is Microsoft Project. I think that those are very broadly used. There are many, many other project management software tools. Primavera is very popular in Canada for some reason. I love Airtable, and I don't think that very many people are aware of that, but Airtable is just an awesome, awesome tool. And you can actually get a free version of Airtable. And it's very inexpensive to upgrade. And it is, you're able to collaborate using Airtable. So that's a great tool. Another tool that I've recently come across that I just love is Mural. It's Mural, mural.co. There are a ton of templates for Six Sigma Lean and Agile and other project management and general business applications, as well as some really fun templates as well. And it too has a huge base of templates that are available for free, and you can collaborate with your team, or you can upgrade to a paid account for even more access.
Awesome. Now, can you tell me can you compare those to project management software that we might be more familiar with, like maybe Trello or Monday.com?
Oh, Trello. Trello is another one that I really, really love. And Monday.com I'm familiar with, but I don't really use a lot because when I want like real project management, I default to Microsoft Project. For me, that's the gold standard.
So does Microsoft Project, do they have a app version that you can access from a phone or a tablet when you're on the go, or is it strictly desktop based?
It can be downloaded to a tablet. Yes, I'm not so sure about the phone version. I've never tried that.
I know that's one of the benefits of, say, Trello or
Yes.
Monday.com is they have app
Yeah.
versions that you can access
Hmm.
from anywhere. And I
Hmm.
know they're a little bit more basic and they don't have quite the same amount of features, but it does allow somebody to dip their toes in and get started with
Hmm.
some organizational principles.
Hmm.
And as we talk about the principles, can we step back to the Project Management Institute?
Hmm.
And when you were dealing with the Project Management Institute, I know a lot of the people that we talk to have a desire to get their PMP. So, what kind of undertaking can you say would be involved in getting the PMP?
Once you have established that you've you've met the requirements for the number of hours, there is, like I said, a training requirement. And I would recommend a PMP prep course for that. And a lot of colleges, junior colleges, there are even online courses for this. And that's what I would recommend because that meets two things. It meets the training requirement required by PMI, and it gets you ready to take the exam. And there's an excellent PMP prep book that was written by Rita Mulcahy. And a lot of the courses will teach from Rita's book, and that will set you up for success.
Nice. We got Ian asking a question here. I don't know if you might know the answer to this. If not, I'll chime in a little bit. But can you combine the PMI certificate being the PMP with the as is certificate, which is the CPP?
I'm not familiar with the as is
All right.
certificate.
I'll chime in because it is a security related credential. And
Hmm.
working in the security industry for the past 10 years, it's
Hmm.
something that I've dealt with a lot. PMI offers a PMP, and
Hmm.
as is offers the CPP. And they also offer a couple other credentials, but those are the big ones that they offer. Those credentials are similar in the fact that you need to have a certain amount of education and a certain number of hours in order to be eligible to take the test. But that's where the similarity stops. Other than that, they don't work together. You can't get them by attending one. You can't go do the other. They are two different branches when it comes to the study program. So I know a lot of people who choose to do both. If you work in the security industry and you get your CPP, a lot of people also get their PMP because in security, you're not only managing security related projects, they are still projects. So I know a lot of people do both. Hopefully, Ian, that answers your question. If not, let us know.
Great
All,
question.
all right, let's change gears a little bit because you do have your own company
Yes.
and you have a website I've noticed, which is a very nice, slick website, by the way.
Mhm.
So can we
Thank you.
get into a little bit more of the branding side of the world? So as an engineer or a young students breaking into NASA or breaking into the engineering world before you started your own company,
Mhm.
can you tell us some of the personal branding steps you may have taken to get to where you are today?
Sure. So this is actually the second company that I've owned.
Oh, no, forget it. We can't talk about it.
Wow, I want to hear all about this.
Okay. So um, in about 2003, I took a break from technology. The company that I've been working for in Kansas City was really, really great as far as my salary and all of that. In fact, um, I remember calling my dad one day and saying, Dad, I've got really good news and not so good news. The good news is that I got a promotion and I got a raise and I got a $50,000 bonus. and I got laid off all in the same week.
Aww.
So,
All right,
so
tell me more.
yeah, so I worked for a company in Kansas City that was called Aquila, and it was an energy company. And so, in addition to being an energy provider, they had a trading floor. So they traded energy, all forms of energy, commodities, coal, gas, electricity, in a just like a stock exchange kind of thing. It was a commodities trading floor. And at that time, telecom bandwidth was just starting to be traded as a commodity. And they had hired me to be the manager of their research and development team. And it was a very small organization, the telecom bandwidth trading organization. And I pretty much was the only person that knew anything about telecom. So I wrote a lot of white papers, and tried to teach people telecom lingo. And I was there for about 18 months. Unfortunately for Aquila, Enron was both the number one supplier and the number one customer of the company. And so eventually the entire thing imploded. And so the company
That had to
shut
be
down.
tough. That
It
had
was
to be
tough.
really tough.
But thankfully, that $50,000 bonus provided me with the capital to start my own company for the first time. So
All right,
I
two quick questions before you continue. Sorry to interrupt, but I need to know, for one, during that time, that had to be tough. The mindset, what was your mindset like at that moment?
Well, thankfully, the company did provide me with some outplacement resources, and so I took full advantage of that. I took a lot of training about, what were my interests, and it was really helpful. And that's when I discovered that I had a lot of an entrepreneurial sense, and I decided to go with that.
All right, now that brings me to my second question, so thank you. You get that $50,000 package there, and that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for anybody. But during a time like that, people don't understand that that money could easily go towards paying for expenses and living costs while you're looking for that next position.
Mhm.
Something tells me you took it a step further. Can you tell me what you went and did with that $50,000?
I had a financial advisor, and that really helped.
Very nice.
Mhm.
So
And I was financially secure, so it
nice.
helped.
So what kind of advice did you get from that advisor at that time?
Um, don't spend it all, you know, and make sure that I had enough savings so all of my monthly expenses would be met. I also had a spouse that was very risk averse and very financially savvy. So we made these kinds of decisions together. Mhm.
Nice.
No,
Mhm.
I have to jump in and ask a question. Okay. So someone, entering the workforce and they're eager, right? Managing projects versus managing people. Would
Mhm.
you recommend someone maybe get into managing projects first, managing people first? What are your thoughts there?
That's a really good question. And as an introvert, I'm going to say managing projects.
All right. Because they
Yeah.
both have their, I mean, like, there are some challenges there. So,
Yes.
either way we go, I mean,
Yes.
very important position. So, what is
Mhm.
your thought?
Yeah. Um, how, I think you have to realize, even as an introvert, if you're going to be a project manager, the resources involved in managing projects will include relationships and people, and you have to be able to work with people. And usually the project manager is not going to have direct authority over anything. And so it's going to be through influence and communication that you get anything done.
No, that's a great point. Let me tag on for a second. I know I work in the world of operations and I've worked in project management in the past. So those are two things that usually get interchanged, and people say, "Oh yeah, well he's a project manager or operations management. They know what to do," but they're two separate fields.
Yes.
So can you kind of explain to us why or what those differences are?
So I think of the operations manager as being that direct line manager of something. An operations manager could have direct authority over people, products, manufacturing of widgets, inventory. You're going to have definitely going to have P&L type responsibilities. The project manager is going to be more responsible for the end results of the project. So being responsible for the budget, the schedule, the risk register, those types of things. But I mean, you may have responsibility for your particular budget, but I don't think the project managers typically have responsibility for the profitability of the company long term the way an operations manager would.
No, you're exactly right. And let me take that a step further as well. I know when I think of project management versus operations management, I think of a project manager is the one who starts and ends. They have a start and an end point. And the
Yes.
operations manager is the one that steps in at the end and takes it for the ongoing future. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have an end in mind. Like you said, they're responsible for P&L. And if they continue to grow and expand on that P&L,
Mm-hmm.
then that project continues. So it's an
Mm-hmm.
ongoing business at that point where the project manager is got a very distinct start and end point.
A project is by definition temporary.
Exactly. All right. Well, before we reach the end of the show, let me go ahead and jump into some of these questions and see if you can give some advice to our listeners out there. All right. I believe I've uncovered a minor problem in a new service that we are rolling out at work. If I communicate this to the project manager, it could put us behind schedule. How do I not sacrifice quality? How do I, or what kind of advice can you give?
I say you have no choice but to raise the issue. The you cannot sacrifice quality, and if you ignore the possible issue, that what is a risk today will become an issue, and that could be much more costly.
So, how do you bring that up? I mean, you're typically not in a position of power, let's say. You're more, like you said, you're more in a position of influence.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're bringing this up to a board of directors or the people who are overseeing this project,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have some sort of soft skills when you're bringing this up. What would be
Yes.
your recommendations?
Does your company or do you personally have a template for a risk advisory? So you identify what the risk is, you identify its potential impact, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking out. Its impact and its likelihood, probability, and it's like, well, if it's highly probable but it doesn't have a lot of impact, well, maybe we don't have to do anything. And so you want to present those things, and then you can also present, here are some plans or possible ways to mitigate this risk. and maybe present a schedule for what those mitigation plans would be. So what will it do to your schedule to take these mitigating actions? And then what will it do to the schedule if you don't mitigate the risk and then the issue does present?
All right, next question. I'm going to have to paraphrase because it goes on for quite a bit, but I work for a large company. I'm a co-leader of a project. We are running into a few setbacks on the project, and the responsibility is mine to communicate to the client. How much is too much to share?
That differs. It's a unique situation. A lot of it depends on what is your relationship with the client, and you definitely want to share enough so that the client can be aware and make any type of decisions that they need to make. So if the budget needs to be expanded, if you need to make different choices about the scope, if there's change, if you need to do a change impact analysis, those types of things need to be communicated. Do not over communicate to the point where the client is now frantic over something that really is just a very small issue. And you want to be honest and forthright.
Sure. No, I can imagine. I deal with a lot of clients. We oversee a very large region. We have locations around the globe. So we have clients that are located primarily within one hub, but they are around the globe as well. And one of the things you would do if you're not coming up with these, if you're not coming to the client with this information ahead of time, you're running the risk of losing their trust. And if you lose their trust, you're not going to gain it back, or at least you're not going to gain it back easily, especially, like you said, if they run the risk of damaging their budget. So most of our clients, or all of our clients, are given a budget and they can only work within that budget. And if we don't help them stay within that budget and we don't make them aware of some things that could threaten that budget, we do damage that trust, and we don't want to do that. And also, I mean, it's like anything else, it's a relationship. And you don't want to damage your relationship with somebody. That's how you build the trust, and you grow your business to begin with. All right, next one. Currently work in operations management, and I would like to transition into project management. My director thinks this will hinder my leadership progress in the organization. Do you have any thoughts on this?
It could be that since maybe that wasn't the path that your director took, they don't understand how that might actually expand your leadership and career opportunities. I've seen it go the other way.
Right.
I think that project management gives you a very broad understanding of how the organization works and how the cooperation of cross-functional teams is important for projects to be successful.
Sure. No, like yourself, I've usually seen it in the reverse, where people go from project management into operations management. And I think if you take that step, if you go from project management into operations, you're dealing with one project, you're usually dealing with one client, you're dealing with one situation. And that gives you a good foundation to expand to running multiple projects and to dealing with multiple clients. And as you do that, you find that is more of what the role of an operations manager is dealing with multiple projects at one time. And I know when I deal with my team, they usually start by overseeing one project, and that could be the launch of a new client. That could be the launch of a new product. So while we're doing those type of launches, it gives them the organizational skills that they need to master in order to run that project and to be successful. And then it's just like anything else. If you can handle running one project, now if I give you two, can you run and keep them separate and keep them organized and deal with two clients and deal with two different time frames and schedules? And then if I give you three and then four, and then you just start building into what an operations manager does on a day-to-day basis. And eventually what ends up happening, at least in my world, is we take that person who's showing the success in that area, then we give them a portfolio of business. And that's how they typically grow. And in our world, you grow based on hours. So it's how many hours of service do you oversee? So an entry-level person taking on a new project might oversee a launch of 168 hours, which is one person around the clock, 7 days a week. There's 168 hours in a week. If you have two, you got 336 and so on. So the more hours you put under your belt, the larger your portfolio of business. So to me, like you mentioned, I think it's easier to go from project management to operations management.
In project management, we talk about individual projects lead to programs, lead to portfolios, and then to the entire PMO.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we are reaching the top of the hour, which means we have reached the end of the show. So if you found any value in tonight's show whatsoever, please tell a friend. You can keep the conversation going over at franzeandfriends.com, where you can reach out to Miss Mindy or myself. We would love to talk with you. We'd love to help you. More importantly, we'd love to hear your questions, and whether we answer them privately or bring them up on the show, whatever you prefer. So, Miss Mindy, I thank you, as always, for being here with me and helping me through the night. And Miss Angela, I can't thank you enough for joining our circus. Do you have any final words you'd like to leave us with?
I'm just so pleased to have been here tonight with you. And these were great questions. I hope that I was able to offer you some helpful advice.
You have been absolutely amazing. We can't thank you enough. So on that note, folks, have a good night.